One day away from Selection Sunday.
Uh-huh.
Can you believe it? We're here.
It's almost here.
Here, man. You see the young boys from Connecticut wanting to fight after the game. I get so mad at that because you stop them. If you can't stop them, then stop crying. I hate that shit. I really really hate that. You start complaining like a little girl because the team dunked the ball at the end. Cut it.
You mean UConn?
Yes. You see
Yeah,
Diarra tried to fight the kid. That was hilarious.
yeah.
Ooh wee. It's gonna be a countdown to Saturday. I can tell you that. I'm
Mm-hmm.
excited. Okay, we are back. College Hoops RX. It's your boy Sosa Picks. I've been out all week. My man Spin Doc Sports with me. He's been holding it down, getting you right, getting you paid. Um, it's Saturday, man. A lot of games today. Conference tournament time, the best time of the year. Selection Sunday tomorrow. Gonna announce some content for that. Obviously when it goes live. But Spin, it's Saturday. We're here to make some money. How we feeling?
Feeling good. Came back yesterday with a 2-1. Got Cal Irvine. I also actually ended up upgrading that one to a VIP play the more that I looked at it, and may or may not have laid the hammer down on them myself. So that was a good one. And yeah, I mean, I'll have a bracketology update in a minute here. There were I gotta say, there were games that were fun to watch in spots yesterday. I don't know if any of them yesterday were particularly like super exciting. Like Arizona kind of handled Texas Tech from start to finish. You had well, I mean, the only game really that ended up being exciting at the end was we'll talk about when we get to bracketology because I've got to cover the heels. Yeah, I know, I know, got to talk about them,
Uh,
but like St. John's Marquette. There was never really any doubt that St. John's was gonna lose that game. A couple of the other ones there, like Utah State, Colorado State. Colorado State was kind of in control for pretty much the whole game. Um, Alabama just beat the shit out of Kentucky. Michigan State handled Oregon. Houston went up like 17-0 on BYU. I mean, honestly, there were a lot of double digit games yesterday. Louisville Clemson was exciting in spots. But honestly, all of the power conference games were kind of unexciting except for like the last 4 minutes of UNC Duke. Other than that, everything else was pretty cut and dry. And even some of the smaller conference games were, again, still fun, still great to watch in March. But I'm not sure that I could look back at yesterday and I could say wow, that was just a crazy exciting day of basketball. Probably one of the most exciting games was in Cleveland in the MAC, the 1A MAC, where Akron and Toledo just basically just took turns scoring on each other. 190 was the final. That game was again, wasn't necessarily the best game, but it was exciting to watch. And for some of these teams, for some of these like slugfests that you're seeing, that's what you get when you see a team for the third time around. I mean, even major college basketball, there's only so many different lineup combos. There's only so much different that a team can do to surprise you. So, I mean, I would say it's an overall good day of basketball. It wasn't one that I think I can like look back and say like, wow, like that's one for the history books and conference tournaments, which quite frankly is usually the case. So, yeah, so yeah, onward to today. We got obviously a lot of good matchups today. So, anything that you saw yesterday?
Yeah, I saw the UNC Tar Heels just look like a bad basketball team. No Cooper Flag, and they just absolutely they showed their depth, they showed their grit, and a fifth year senior fumbling the bag at the fucking free throw line at the end of the game is just it's a fucking atrocity. And I gotta cuss about it because that's the only way I can really feel right speaking on it.
Yep.
Absolutely reprehensible for a guy that's experienced and listen, I know it would have just tied the game, and I know people are gonna there's a lot of situations that you can put in place, but man, disappointing. We deserve the NIT at this point, to be totally honest with you. To be quite frank, I feel like that's the case. We deserve the NIT. We don't
Yeah.
we don't deserve a place in the field of 68 because we simply have not shown that we're a good enough basketball team to beat good teams. We've been atrocious against quad one. You preach that when we're talking about bracketology. You can't have a record against good teams that's just absolutely despicable. And I want to give Hubert a mulligan and say, hey, this Duke team is just the goods, but to be in a competitive ball game with a team that's missing their best player and to not find a way to win is just it's disappointing. It hurts. But on to next season, we got more recruits coming in. I think that we now Duke and North Carolina have kind of switched places when it comes to the way that they recruit and the way that they assemble basketball teams. You know what I mean?
Yep.
I feel like that's the case. It's Duke used to be the place where all these kids go to develop and they go to learn the game and they're 3-4 year players. Now Duke seems like this season, for example, is that they've assembled a team. They've added freshmen, and the freshman being the best player, but the development is there. Yes, their best player is a rookie or a freshman, as I should say. But ultimately, as a team, they're so well constructed, and you saw that yesterday. So that's all I'm going to be saying about that game. I'm just furious, to be honest.
Yeah. Well, with that in mind, we'll get into bracketology. We're in the final stages now. We're in the end game. There's still a few things left, I think, to sort out. I have 3 individual team profiles that I'll bring up in a second. But overall, yesterday there was, I would say, not a lot of overall movement. There was more movement from a seeding perspective than there was from a who's in and who's out perspective. The last kind of 4 to 6 teams that are fighting for the last 3 to 4 spots are pretty much the same. There were a few teams that I think probably solidified their overall seeding yesterday. Like, for example, St. John's has solidified they're going to be a high 2 seed no matter what happens. Tennessee is going to be a 2 seed no matter what happens. I'm not convinced that anybody at this point is going to knock off and make Houston, Florida, Duke, or Auburn a 2 seed. To me, those are probably the 4 number 1 seeds, regardless of what happens today and tomorrow. I don't know if beating Creighton is going to be a big enough win to move St. John's up to a 1. I'm not really sure who they'd overtake. I guess maybe Houston, but you also, when you look at metrics and you look at net metrics and stuff like that, overall for the net rankings, those are the top 4 teams in this order: Duke, Auburn, Houston, Florida. They have pretty much been the top 4 teams all year. On the 2 line, I think that it's probably right with Alabama, Tennessee, Michigan State, St. John's. Those are what most prognosticators have projected at this point. I would tend to agree with that. And then from there, that's where I think that it gets kind of a little less clear. I'll put it that way. I think that there are still some teams that are still fighting for seeding and can definitely improve their overall seeding, but the ones and twos to me are pretty well set. Right now, I don't think Kentucky can get up to a 2. Wisconsin might, if they win the Big Ten tournament, they might be able to flip flop Sparty. They might be able to get into that 2 line. I'm still not convinced that they will. Texas Tech after last night, I know that Logan had the thing, had the comment about the injury report, which yes, it's really, really dumb. And it really, really fucked up a VIP play, but Texas Tech for sure now can't move up to the 2 line. Maryland, I'll get to them when we get to plays. Even if they win the Big Ten tournament, I don't see them getting up to the 2 line. They're probably stuck at, or probably pretty well solidified into a 3. So we'll go into individual teams. There's really only 3 right now. The first is, as you mentioned, is the Heels. So obviously the quad 1 record, I'm not going to harp on that. We've been over this over and over again. I talked yesterday about how if they win, their chances of getting in were probably closer to 80 to 85% with a loss, 50-50 at best. There's no change right now. You have Lenardi still has them as the last team in. Multiple other prognosticators have them as one of the first 4 out. Now, here's the thing with North Carolina, and it depends on what this year's selection committee looks at, is in past years, the selection committee for bubble teams has rewarded teams after the quad 1, quad 2, all that, has rewarded teams that play a tough non-conference schedule. Now, North Carolina's non-conference schedule rating is 6th in the country. So the only teams better are 3 teams, which I don't really even count, because Florida A&M, Mississippi Valley State, Jackson State, those are 3 SWAC teams that basically just take a bag and take a payday to go into another team's gym and get the shit beat out of them so that power conference team can work on things early in the year. I don't even really count those. So you have Memphis, who's 4th. You have Oakland from the Horizon League, who's 5th, but they're helped because they have standing deals with, because of how long camp's been there. They have standing deals with a lot of power conference teams to play them every year. So really, of the made teams that are on the bubble or going to the tournament, North Carolina has the second best strength of schedule in non-conference. So do they look at that, or do they put more weight on Texas, which has a little bit lower of a net ranking? They have 7 quad 1 wins compared to North Carolina's 1. They do have 5 quad 1 losses compared to North Carolina's 0. Right now, most places have them as last team in, first team out, and you can kind of go back and forth between those 2. Now, talked about North Carolina having the 6th overall best non-conference strength of schedule. However, you have Texas, who is all the way down at 349th out of 362 college, or 364 college basketball teams. So Texas's non-conference schedule has been very, very, very poor. You even go back to the beginning of the year when they were kind of running up their record. I mean, Houston Christian, Mississippi Valley State, Chicago State, Delaware State, Arkansas, Pine Bluff, New Orleans, Northwestern State. You see where I'm going with this, versus a team like North Carolina, who in their non-conference, yes, they don't have many quad 1 wins, but Kansas, Dayton, Auburn, Michigan State, Alabama, Florida, UCLA, Louisville's conference. But anyways, see where I'm going with this. Just an absolutely brutal schedule. So it's going to depend, if you're down to those 2 teams, on the committee members. Do they put more weight on, do you just have straight up more quad 1 wins, or did you play a harder schedule even if you didn't win as many games? The other thing that you have to look at is the committee going to look past Texas's 15 losses? 15's a lot. I forget the number of teams that have actually gotten in with 15 plus losses, but it's a really, really short list. Now, North Carolina, what's that?
And I think every team that's ever done that has won their conference tournament.
Yeah. Sorry, I meant at large teams with
because that's the separating factor. There's been like what you were saying, like I think it's like 8 teams in the last
not many.
It's like 8 teams in like the last 25 years that got in with like I think it was 13 or more losses, and they all were teams that won their conference tournament. None of them got in as an at large.
Yep. So it's gonna be to me. And just hearing past years about what the debate is in the room when they make the selections, that is going to be the debate. Is it going to be? Are they going to put more stock in? Yeah, you played a tougher schedule. You didn't win many of those games, but you took on all comers. Versus in your non-con, you went and beat up on a bunch of people, and then you finished with Texas. You finished 6-12. Now, granted, they finished 6-12 in the best conference strength-wise overall in college basketball history. So 6-12 in the SEC is a lot different than 6-12 in the ACC or American or something like that. North Carolina 13-7, a little bit lesser of a conference. This one's going to be tough, and this is why I said yesterday it's a 50-50 shot for both teams. I don't necessarily see a world where both teams get in. I think that you can make a case for either one of them. I think that you can make a case for either of these teams over Xavier. I think that at this point, you could possibly make a case for either of these teams over this one, over Boise State. Boise State they did what they had to do. They got 2 conference tournament wins. They're in the championship. They're in the championship now, but they're against their nemesis, Colorado State, who's beat them twice. Boise State right now, by a lot of projections, sits as one of the last 4, if not the last team in or the absolute first team out. Boise State obviously doesn't have as many quality wins. Their non-conference strength of schedule is in between. It's not as good as, certainly, because you got North Carolina and Texas on the opposite ends. Boise State, 125th. It's not as bad as you might think it is. In non-con, they played San Francisco. They lost to San Francisco. They beat Clemson. They lost to Washington State. They beat St. Mary's, which is a really big win for them. And then they had a couple other games against some of those teams where it wasn't the greatest. Even some of their other quad 1 games, like the loss, even though it was back in November, the loss to Boston College might end up hurting them because it's a power conference team, but it's not a good power conference team. So those to me are kind of the last 3 teams that the committee is going to have to decide. And you might get down to a scenario, well, those 2-3 and maybe Xavier. Xavier seems to be pretty safe right now. But those 4 teams are probably fighting for 2 spots. So you have, 3 spots. So you have 3 spots. Now, if Boise loses tonight, obviously Colorado State would get the automatic bid from the Mountain West. I think that probably drops Boise out. That puts Texas in. If Boise wins, then I think that it might move Texas up. It might move Texas up as far as being in. So there's still a number of paths that Texas can take to get into the tournament because you have Boise and Colorado State kind of fighting it out. There also is a scenario where Colorado State wins, Boise moves down a notch, and flip-flops with North Carolina, and then Texas still remains out. So those are kind of the last few teams that are on that at-large on the cut line. But what you also have is you have 3 remaining bid stealers. Talked about it a little bit yesterday, but here are the 3. You have VCU, you have Memphis, and you have UC San Diego. Memphis is going to go to the tournament no matter what happens, whether they win the American or not. If you're a bubble team, you want Memphis to win very, very badly because they're going, and That's it. So VCU, I talked about them yesterday. I think
Belt
it's a
to
probably
ass. Belt to ass yesterday.
oh absolutely it was absolutely
Belt to
and
ass.
with Dave.
I feel bad because like Lowe was on the Bonnie's spread first half, which wasn't a bad look. It was like 6.5, right? But VCU, it seems like over the last 2 weeks, they've hit a switch.
They are playing very well.
They're playing their best ball. They look like a fucking buzzsaw right now. Yesterday was so impressive. I'm not to cut you up, but
No, you're good.
I haven't watched like a bunch of these games, but bro, they looked, oh my goodness, on both ends of the floor. They just were the better team from start to finish.
Yep. And the rest of the A10 tournament, especially with Dayton losing, I mean, they've still pretty well handled Mason this year. Who's the highest remaining seed left? The remaining teams are teams that I think that they match up with pretty well. So, from a bid stealer standpoint, I don't know, unless they lay an egg, which they could. I'm not sure that you're worried about VCU stealing a bid. Now, the last one is kind of the more chaos scenario that I talked about yesterday, where you have UC San Diego in the Big West Championship against UC Irvine tonight. Now, San Diego is favored. UCSD is favored by about 5.5. And if they win this game, it renders this whole scenario absolutely completely moot. But UC San Diego has a net ranking of 35. They have a higher net ranking than Texas. They have a higher net ranking than North Carolina. They have more quad one wins. I kind of touched on this yesterday. And UC San Diego. Now, the one other point that might hurt them is their strength of non-con strength of schedule 231st. So it's not quite as bad as Texas, but it's down there. If Irvine wins tonight, I think that UC San Diego does get some very, very serious consideration and serious discussion for an at-large bid if you also have Boise win the Mountain West, because if Boise wins the Mountain West, then that Colorado State's almost on the next four out. They're probably not getting in as an at-large, so that could open up a spot that UC San Diego could potentially take. Do they take it from Texas, who has 7 quad one wins, but a much terrible non-conference strength of schedule? I don't know. So those, I think, are the last teams that you're looking at. If the conference tournaments all go the chalk way, then I think that you're looking at the committee deciding between Texas, North Carolina, Xavier, and whoever, and then Boise if they lose the Mountain West Championship tonight. If Boise wins the Mountain West Championship, the other people hold, then the other bid stealers hold, then it could end up being a pretty cut and dry selection Sunday, with the last 3 teams in being Xavier, Texas, and then North Carolina as the absolute last one. Because then after that, you have teams like Indiana, who probably has too many losses to go. Dayton for sure won't go. Colorado State doesn't have the resume to go. Ohio State's has sunk last week. But then you start getting into like Wake Forest and like North Texas, teams like they're not getting in. So there's still a little bit of drama left. But if you have all of the bid stealers win their conference tournament and Boise wins the Mountain West, I personally think that Selection Sunday might be pretty cut and dry tomorrow.
Yeah, listen, I tend to agree with you 100% in regards to tomorrow. Listen, I've been talking about Texas. I think the coach is getting fired. I think the head coach of Texas is getting fired. And I'm not saying a bad. Also, I also want to shout out Chris Beard. Chris Beard was talking about, they asked him a question like, how does it feel to coach against, Hall of Fame coaches? And he basically just ran down his resume real quick for the reporter and was like, I don't know if you know this, but we've been doing this for a minute. This ain't new. Don't talk to me like Bruce Pearl or whoever I'm facing is, or Calipari is just out of my level.
Right.
You know what I mean? And I'm sorry, man. I was just so excited about it. And the reason why I bring that up, you brought up Indiana. It's going to be sad to see Mike Woodson go. I don't feel like he's had a fair shake. Also, no. He's a coach. It's not necessarily that he had a fair shake. He's a coach that had to adjust on the fly to NIL.
Yep.
And ultimately, that's what's doomed him. Ultimately, that's what's fucked the program. And people just don't want to be transparent or honest about what's really going on in Indiana. It's that, yes, they can get big recruits out of high school and stuff. But again, you have to understand how the system works when it's implemented. And if you're behind the 8 ball with that, you're fucked. That's another reason why I think Calipari got out. I don't think, because Calipari didn't want to quit coaching, but he didn't like the way that this NIL stuff was going because of how he recruited.
Yep.
So he said, I'm not going to sit in the doldrums for 4 or 5 years. I'm going to go somewhere else and start something new and add something new to my legacy, because that's the only way that the casual fan or the average fan is going to respect me as a coach.
Yep. But and I know that when you add all the NIL stuff that you talked about on top of when you coach at Kentucky, not only are you the coach, but you're also the public face of the program. And there's also a lot of people in the Kentucky network and in the Kentucky Booster Network that pay a lot of money and donate a lot of things. And what they expect out of that is access. And I remember reading that Cal got tired of having to constantly give people access, and basically, I wrote this size of a check, therefore you need to listen to what I have to say. And you know, I'm not saying that that's good, bad, or otherwise, because if somebody writes a $2 million check to the Kentucky basketball program, that should be worth something. But in the world of Kentucky basketball, what that equates to is access, influence, opinion, and maybe they don't do what you say, but they listen to you. And Cal is not the kind of coach that takes super kindly to somebody who's, say, never coached a game before, never been in the trenches before, but just happened to write a big check telling you, oh, well, I think you should do this, or, hey, have you thought about recruiting this kid? Stuff like that. I remembered reading really grinded on him. But when you're the coach at Kentucky, that comes with the territory. That's what you take when you sign up for the job. So
absolutely. We can start getting into to these games. I put my play up first because I've been out all week, and it's Saturday. It's keep it simple for the people. Right? Always keep it simple. Couple set it and forget it parlays for the people. Listen, I think that Kevin Willard and Maryland are the only true threat to Michigan State winning the Big Ten championship.
Yep.
I like them to win outright today. They're 4.5-point favorites. That is a favorite line. And also on the other side, I love Houston today. I love the Cougs. Kelvin Sampson has had teams prepared to play in conference tournaments the last 6 years. As long as he's been at Houston, they've just played very well in conference tournaments. Obviously, it doesn't matter what conference they're in. They're usually the most talented team, and he's a hell of a basketball coach. They're 6.5-point favorites. I like both. I'm taking them both on the money line. You get it right around even money on every book. I just don't see either of these teams losing today. They're both the better basketball team. Michigan showed us against Michigan State last week that they're ass. I know Michigan State did come out in that game shooting the lights out. Nobody thought that Michigan State would hit 8 3-pointers in the first 13 minutes of the game. So I think people are a little low on them, but I just think Maryland's operating at a very high level. Ultimately, they have the best player on the floor. I believe that they're better coached. I like Dustin May and all that, and what he's the culture builder that he's become. But ultimately, I like Maryland and Houston today to go out there, win their matchups, and be in a situation tomorrow to put themselves in position to be a very high seed.
Yeah, can't disagree with any of that, and that's going to correlate really well with my second play when we get to it. So I actually have two from the Big Ten tournament. We'll kick off the first one. You have Wisconsin and Michigan State kicking things off at 1 p.m. Eastern. You got Sparty at a -3.5 with a total of 144.5 in the Big Ten semifinals. So for this one, I think that the line is probably about correct. So I'm not really looking at the line. What I'm looking for here is the total. And a total of 144.5, I think, factors in a lot of metrics from the past a little bit too much versus how these two teams are playing right now. Obviously, Wisconsin's been a high efficiency offense for pretty much the entire season. Michigan State, Sosa, you mentioned about their 3-point shooting. It was 14th in the conference. However, last three, they're at 37.9%. And actually, I think last five, they're shooting close to 40% from deep. You combine that with a Michigan State team that is both of these teams' offenses are just playing such high efficiency offense right now that it's really, really hard for me to take anything but the over here, to the point where Michigan State, their overall floor percentage, which if you don't know what that is, floor percentage is the percentage of total possessions where you get at least 1 point, where you get some kind of points. Michigan State at a 53.8% floor percentage, so over half their possessions result in points. That mark would rank top 11 nationally. Wisconsin always good in that department. They're top 55 in the country in that same metric. They're over 50% as well. So and then also when you figure that if at least half of these possessions are going to end in some kind of points, some kind of points for somebody, then you have to look at, will they get enough? To me, I look at, will they get enough possessions to hit this number? And you have both teams playing at about a top half pace. Wisconsin plays a little bit faster, but over the last few weeks or so, that has actually increased. The number of seconds per possession has gone down. These two teams are getting out and running a little bit more. And specifically for Sparty, it's always been the 3-point shot, but they're shooting it just so much better and at such a much higher level lately. Obviously, I don't necessarily buy into the whole thing about, well, Wisconsin made 19 3-pointers yesterday and just shot the lights out, so they used them all up. Like, guys don't just forget how to shoot. Now, sometimes if you have a team that doesn't shoot the three very well or that doesn't shoot very well, have just a night where they shoot out of their minds, they can come back to earth. Wisconsin's been one of the highest efficiency offenses all season. Top 50 in effective field goal percentage, 53.1 over their last three, and close to 55 over their last five. Michigan State, exact same thing. Just an overall just high efficiency offense. Michigan State almost 55% last three, almost 60% last five. And both of these teams make their free throws. You see it here, 1 and 2 in the conference, 80.8, 78.2. Michigan State's aggressive defense can be prone to fouls. Michigan State gets to the line very well. And to me, this is a game where I think that we see it played in the high 70s. So for me, it was actually a pretty easy take. I looked at their last game, and obviously that game went significantly under. It was finished at 137, I think, but that was at Michigan State on a neutral floor with as efficient as these offenses are playing right now. For as good as Michigan State's defense is, I think you're going to see points. I also think that you're going to see a close game, which can potentially lead to the foul game in the end. And again, both of these teams shoot free throws exceptionally well. So over 144.5 first play.
And also, real quick, just a thought: these aren't your daddy's Badgers.
No, this is not slow down Wisconsin ball.
Right, this ain't the Wisconsin of old that we grew accustomed to, of this walk it up, boring bullshit, demonstrative basketball. They run pro offense.
Yep, yes they do.
It's much different than what we've going to become accustomed to. Shout out to them. Love the over in that one. Next game we're going to get into. Spoke on it briefly. The line, you got it at 3.5 right now. We got Michigan taking on Maryland. 3:30 start time. We got Maryland laying 4.5 right now. It's 3.5 on the graphic, as you see, and a total of 150.5. What are you betting on in this one? Obviously, I've already made my play in it.
Yeah. Must have gone up since I made the graphic.
So yeah, it's 4.5.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. 3.5, 4.5 doesn't really make a difference. This is a Terps game. Again, high efficiency offenses don't just forget how to shoot. And obviously, Maryland's offense last night was just so impressive. So impressive. Aside from the final score doesn't really indicate how badly um, Illinois was beaten. Maryland only had 3 turnovers the entire game in against a ranked team in a conference tournament game. 3. And actually, at one point in the middle of the second half, or early to middle second half, they had none. They didn't turn the ball over a single time. So even if you take away the 11 threes that they made, they got to the line 24 times. Even if you take that away, only turning the ball over 3 times is just absolutely incredible. And why that matters for this one for me is since they've been taking care of the ball and this turnover rate, this is not something new. This is something that Maryland, as far as like turnovers per possession, turnovers per game, et cetera, they're top 20, they're top 30 in the country in this metric. They've in their last 3 games 13.2% turnover rating, which would be 8th overall in the country. You're up there with teams like Marquette and Auburn, Gonzaga. It's just absolutely incredible how well they're taking care of the ball. Now, what's been Maryland or Michigan's Achilles heel all season has been 2 things. Number 1 is forcing turnovers. You see it right here. They don't force many turnovers. They don't play a high pressure defense. And number 2 is turning the ball over themselves, 19.6% in the conference season. And you have a Maryland team Maryland team that's been doing a really, really good job of forcing turnovers. So aside from the fact of the shooting they did yesterday, they're forcing 15.3 turnovers per game last 3, almost 16 in their last 5. Both of those marks would rank in the top 10 in all college basketball. So you combine the offense that they have, you combine the lack of turnovers, the taking care of the ball, and Michigan's propensity to turn the ball over. In their losses, it has been their Achilles heel all year. So, despite Vlad Golden, despite all the threes that they hit, it's just been an absolute dagger for them all season, to the tune of 329th in overall turnover rate, turning the ball over once every 5 possessions on the road or away from home. So you give me all that, and you give me really a lot with watching how both teams are playing. You give me a line under 5 points, and I am interested. So Maryland -3.5, -4.5. I don't care. This could end up, honestly, this could end up being a double digit win for the Terps. I'm all over Maryland today. Mute if you're trying to think.
On to the next game. You look at the chat. We got Louisville taking on Duke. We got an 8:30 start. Duke laying 5.5 against the Louisville team that people are very surprised by their performance this year. Obviously, changing head coaches, etc. If you can pull it up for me, it'd be great.
Yep, you got it.
Listen, in this game, I'm taking Louisville with the +5.5. I'm gonna just tell you straight up. No Cooper Flagg. I know everybody is impressed by this basketball team. Cooper Flagg is not going to play today. He's not playing. And if he does play, don't bet this game till closer to the game. But I think, like I said, for me personally, 5.5 is a purgatory number. You watched this team last night. I feel like they had to really just empty the tank to win that game against us. So in a situation where you play the next day, the 5.5 purgatory number, I'm subject to take the 5.5. And I'm going to sprinkle on the Louisville money line, to be totally frank with you. I think Louisville has a legit chance of winning this game, and I wouldn't be surprised if we did like the double result where you take like Louisville first half or Duke full game or vice versa. You know what I mean? Something along those lines. It's just the line's just telling me Louisville with the 5.5. Now I might look like a complete jackass after this because Duke showed yesterday they got depth. They got a team that looks like they really play together really, really well. But in this one, like I said, they had to empty the tank last night, and then they start 8:30 tonight. So they got to sit there and watch everybody play. Then they got to get their energy levels up for a late start. Give me Louisville with the 5.5. This Duke team, obviously, everybody's on their nuts after performing well yesterday, as they should be. They perform well. I wouldn't say as they should be. Pause. You know what I'm saying? But they came up with a W against North Carolina, and for all intents and purposes, it looked like a gritty win. I'll be honest with you, we're not fucking good, bro. So it feels good. I feel more so from like a morale standpoint for Duke fans. But I would not be impressed beating North Carolina. We fucking stink. So, celebrating beating us is like getting in a fight with a kid in a wheelchair. You really happy you won, bro?
Yeah. I hear you.
That's just how I feel about it. Give me Louisville tonight, and let's see what the squabble's about. That's what I'm on. Like I said, there's so many situations with chalk. We were talking about it earlier. Yesterday, you could have probably bet chalk across the board and be up a lot.
Yep.
I don't think that's a continuation today. I think we get really competitive ball games. Neutral sites play a part. Once the dog starts making a run at a neutral site, crowd usually starts fucking with them. So that's my expectation for today. Give me Louisville.
Yep. Just real quick, Logan Lowe's on them saying I took them last night +6. Yep. Also saying I like the over 2. Real quick before speaking of that, before I get into my last play, if anybody, I see that there's a lot of people watching right now. If anybody has any games that you want to cover, anything you want to cover, just pop it in the chat. After I give my last play during final thoughts, we always go over that. So if there's any other games, just pop them in the chat. We'll get them up. We'll talk about them. But real quick before I get to my last play, we put some comments up on the screen. Squad Life Breeze, what's up, my guy? Logan, trying to rob FanDuel. We all still are. What's up? Mo, Mom Who Bets, all of y'all, thank you so much for tuning in. We really, really appreciate the love. So one thing I want to say, you talked about coaches, and it was the right coach. Even though I absolutely fucking hated him when he was at Charleston because it's in Towson's conference, it was a respectful hate, because Pat Kelsey is a hell of a basketball coach. He's a hell of a motivator. He's a hell of a teacher. And he's just an overall good person. So like I said, it would always be congratulations to College of fucking Charleston because they fucking beat us again, but it was all out of respect. Pat Kelsey is an absolutely phenomenal basketball coach, and he deserves all the success that he's getting right now at Louisville. And I am all over cheering for the Cardinals in this game. I hope that he does well. If you've ever heard the guy talk, if you've ever watched practice videos of him, he is the most positive guy. He's the most encouraging guy. His players all say how much he cares about them as people and how he maintains relationships with them after they leave. So I can't say enough nice things about Pat Kelsey, even though we couldn't fucking beat him with Towson.
I also have to shout him out for a reason, because I said on Up Space that I hope he failed. I did say this. I can't lie. I have the quotes. I know, and because my boy Alex, who's like who lives in Louisville, is a big Louisville guy. He'll never let me live it down, because I said that I thought Kenny got a raw deal. I did. I kept saying that, and it turns out that I was wrong. Pat's the guy, and you're absolutely right. I said I hope he failed, and he's been wildly successful in his first year. I think he's extending level of expectation for program in any capacity.
Yep. All right. I'll get to my last one because I see we got some comments, so we can get to those. So the MAC, the 2A MAC, my MAC, you got Iona and Mount St. Mary's. The only loss that I had with free plays yesterday was fading the Gales, and I won't make that mistake again. This is the MAC championship, and this is a prime Iona spot. And there's one thing, and you can probably see it on the color scheme on KenPom, that sticks out like a glaring sore thumb, and that again is the turnovers. So Mount St. Mary's worst in the conference in turning the ball over. They're almost dead last in college basketball in turnover rate. It hasn't gotten better, even though they've won, even though they've gotten to the MAC championship. This team, their guards are not very strong. Their guards are not very athletic. Their guards also aren't very big. And when you have an Iona team, when you play Tobin ball, which if you don't know what that is, Tobin Anderson is their coach. It's the same style he used at Fairleigh Dickinson when they upset Purdue. It's a lot of guys. You can see Iona down here. They're only they're 33rd in percentage of bench minutes, so they use 10 guys in rotation. They are up the floor all game. They're trapping. They're trying to get up in your grill and force turnovers to go back for easy baskets. They do a very, very good job of this. What they've also been doing is during this win streak they have, which has been 5 in a row, and their only loss over the last almost over the last month has been in overtime against Merrimack, where they gave it away. But they have been playing just so exceptionally well. They were very, very shaky to start the season, but Tobin has them playing their best ball at the right time. So I will not make that mistake again. Mount St. Mary's over a 20% turnover rate, over 21.5% on the road. That is just not going to do it against a Gales team where, as you can see, they're second in the conference, they're 7th in the country in forcing turnovers. But it's been even better lately. So it's been even better over the course of the MAC tournament, and they have been forcing them, especially away from home, 22.2%. Now, the big thing with Iona that has been their problem all season is they force a whole bunch of turnovers, but then they go back on offense and they don't really get points because they have a lot of streaky shooters. Now, when you have a team of streaky shooters like the Gales, what you have to do is you have to ride the waves. And right now we're on a crest. 55.8% last 3 games, all closer to 57% last 5. And they are shooting the lights out of the ball, especially for them. That 55.8 mark and almost 57, that would be in the top 15 of all college basketball teams during that same period of time. The other thing that's been one of their Achilles heels is their inability to make the three. Only 32% for the year, and only a 33.3% in conference play, but 34.4% last 3, closer to 36% last 5. So they're converting those turnovers into points. To me, Mount St. Mary's just doesn't have the overall. You can come down here and you can see on their guard play and their personnel with 6'1", 6'3", 6'2" against 6'8", 6'7", 6'8", 6'5". And 6'3", with only one guy who's 6 feet, who's one of the regular contributors. That is a recipe for Iona, which they did in their first matchup, to force a whole bunch of turnovers and get a lot of easy baskets. Mount St. Mary's, in the first time these two teams played, turned the ball over 18 times. Now, they only ended up losing by 3 in overtime, but here's the difference. Iona only shot 43.8%. They shot 8 for 25 from deep, and they only got to the free throw line 7 times. So it was their offense that failed them. I just talked about how throughout the course of this win streak, their offense has just been absolutely rock and rolling. So if you have a team that forces this many turnovers, which they did last time, and which Mount St. Mary's, even though they've won their first 2 tournament games, has been more than happy to turn the ball over, and now you have Iona's offense coming, I'm not standing in front of this train. I was very, very shaky on Tobin earlier in the season. I will fully endorse Tobin ball tonight because it's a style that can just beat up on a team like Mount St. Mary's that has those smaller, kind of more slender guards. Those are the kinds of teams where Iona can really do damage. And like I said, what failed them the first time wasn't their defense. They forced almost 20 turnovers. It was their offense. Their offense has been locked in during the MAC tournament. I'm not standing in front of this train. I own a -3.5. I even might take it up to an alt line of minus like 4.5 to 5. So Iona wins, and Tobin makes a triumphant return to the NCAA tournament. And because it's the conference that I follow so close, I hope that he has success. All right.
Yes, sir.
All right.
Let's get into some questions.
Yep. We'll go Luke Murphy. Luke Murphy.
We got
Sosa,
2 people that asked about the Yale game.
Sosa, you're coming through choppy. Sorry. Sosa's frozen right now, so I'll wait to see if he comes back. But yeah, Sosa's frozen. All right. So Luke Murphy, welcome in as always, my friend. I like the Yale team total today. Any thoughts? Yeah, Yale is certainly the highest, one of the highest efficiency offenses in the Ivy. They're kinda. It's choppy again.
All right, I'll be right back.
Yeah. Okay. Yale second overall in the conference in effective field goal percentage, 43rd overall for the season, 14th in 3-point shooting. And Princeton's defense has had some kind of ugly-ish defensive performances. So if I had a free play, I would probably lean something on a team total over. Yeah. I know that Yale put up, they put up 54. Or no, sorry, 84 the last time that they played them. And then at Princeton, they put up close to 80. So can't argue with that at all. You got Trucking with Loshawn Parks. What's up, my guy? Welcome in. Tennessee Auburn. I know that Michael, welcome and thank you. Michael had some questions about Auburn as well. So let's go to Tennessee Auburn. I'm actually just going to bring up the KenPom for that one so that show you guys what my thoughts on this game are. So Tennessee and Auburn meeting again in the finals. This actually has the potential to be one of the best games of the day. And here, as you can see, so when I look at this Tennessee Auburn game, I mean, for me, I probably have to look at Auburn. My problem is that I thought that the 3.5 was the right line to start with. It's been bet up so far. It's been around 5. So it might be one that I look to get in a live spot. If I can get Auburn one possession or maybe a little bit less, then that makes me more interested. Tennessee's defense has been obviously lights out all year. They've been playing almost as well recently. And from a totals perspective, this total has been bet up a lot. This total is already over 140. It opened closer to like 136, 137. So I think if I'm going to play this one, I'm probably looking at, I'm probably not going to touch the total because it's been bet up. I know that their first game was an absolute slugfest, 53-51. It was an absolute war. Now, for this one, I tend to lean more towards there being more points scored. Especially since Auburn's guards aren't pussies. If you haven't heard that, just look up Bruce Pearl guards, and it's one of the reasons why I love Bruce, because Bruce is who he is, man. Bruce is who he is. He doesn't apologize, but his guards aren't pussies. I know that. I can. What's that, Sosa? Sorry.
That's just funny because it's. I think back to what I was watching the other day, where it was like a pregame between the two coaches, and they're like one coach is like giving his pregame like speech to the team, and he's like quiet, and Bruce Pearl looks like he's off six cups of coffee, like he's like just juiced, tripping at his players, and the other coach is like super. Like, it was just really funny.
No, Bruce is Bruce is crazy, man. He's it was funny because my brother texted me about that yesterday, and I said the same thing. I said, man, Bruce is who he is, and he doesn't change, and he doesn't apologize, and he gets guys just absolutely amped to play. I have never been as that super convinced about Bruce Pearl from an X's and O's perspective, but if you want a coach that's just going to get you absolutely hyped and the kind of coach that if he'll just point to like a brick wall and say, I want you to run face first into that 3 times in a row. You just be like, okay, coach, sure, I'll do it.
And all 11 of them are doing it at the same time.
Yes, and you'll do it with pride,
No problem.
Just because you believe in him so much, and you also know that he would probably just run right into it with you, and that's the kind of coach that you want to play for. I talked about Pat Kelsey before about some of his ability to connect with guys and to get guys just absolutely jacked to go play. Bruce Pearl, same way. But anyways, back to the game. I can see there being a few more points in this one, for sure, more points in the first one. But what I'm looking to do for this one is I'm looking to see if I can get Auburn within a possession, maybe 3.5. To me, what it's been bet up to is just a little too much. Sosa, do you have any thoughts on Auburn and Tennessee today?
Yeah, I would never bet on Rick Barnes with the money in the middle of the table. I'm gonna just leave it at that.
Yeah, I'm with you.
Those are my thoughts. If you're backing Rick Barnes, best of luck, my friend. I hope you have a sedative.
Yeah, it's
you have to calm yourself down cussing at the fucking TV after he does a bunch of dumb shit.
Yep,
just my thoughts.
Yep, I'm with you. Fatbed Joe, welcome in. Says we talked about the Princeton game and the Bryant game. So Bryant gets Maine today, and you got a total. The total's been bet down slightly. It's pretty much holding right now. And you also have Bryant, which is Bryant's laying 7.5. That's kind of like the no man's land number for me. I know that they've pretty well dominated this conference during the regular season, but in their first, Bryant won at Maine by 8, and then they won at home by like 1 million, but that was early in the season. Bryant, ever since falling to Vermont, they've really been on a roll. The thing with Maine, because I've actually watched Maine, I've actually watched both teams, but I've watched Maine play a few times this year, and what can be Maine's undoing is if they're not hitting the three. They're number 1 overall in the conference in three-point shooting. They're top 70 overall in the country for the same metric. They have 4 guys that shoot it at 37% or better, and they have a few that are over 40%. So what I look for Bryant has been number 1 in the conference in three-point defense. They play an aggressive physical style of D. They close out very, very well on the perimeter, and they do so without fouling. So overall, over the last 3, Bryant's only allowed 32.9%. They only allow 32% regardless. So I would probably lean on Bryant for this one. We've talked about endlessly on this show about how the whole can't beat a team 3 times by that many. That's an absolute misnomer, especially in these small conferences. Bryant matches up exceptionally well with Maine. What they also have is Bryant has long wings. So their wings 6'6", 6'6", 6'8", 6'8", 6'7". I mean, they have length upon length upon length. And it kind of goes back to what I was saying, some of the things I was saying about the Mount St. Mary guards, where you have the Maine guards who are 6'1", 6'3", 6'3", and 6'5". And with all that length for a team that shoots the three so well, you just have a team that can cover them athletically. So I lean Bryant. I would probably even lean on Maine's team total under for that one. And yeah, I might lean on Bryant first half for that one, but this is probably not, this for sure is not a spot where I'm looking to back Maine. James Jack, good morning, good people, and has some wanted some thoughts on Bama, Florida. Sosa, any thoughts on Bama, Florida?
I'm starting to look at Nate Oates like I look at Lawrence.
Choking in big games?
Yeah. They don't coach defense. I've been probably being the best team in America for the last 2 months.
Yep.
I want to see Florida. To see Florida. I think that the back of us Florida games.
Yeah.
I have no belief whatsoever. No belief whatsoever.
You're choppy again. Sorry. It's choppy again. I think for this game, this is for me for this game. This is another one where, from a total perspective, I don't necessarily think. I think that you have to look at the over. This is one where only bet the under if you dare. I know the total's sky high, but remember last time they put up almost 200. And both of these offenses, actually Alabama has put up 90 in three straight games. So I think that you have to look at the over for this one. As far as the actual spread goes, yeah. If I'm going to take this one, I'm probably going to take Alabama. I'm with James Jack on this one. I think that, as I talked about, Florida is a number 1 seed, regardless of what happens. It very much strikes me as being like a team that has the ball last in this one. So both teams have just been absolutely rolling so far in their in conference tournament games. Both teams are just both offenses are incredibly high efficiency. So I would lean Bama, and I would if you're gonna play the total, you have to play the over. This is one where I talk about it in for all the strikeout props that I do for baseball about my thing called No Under Island, which is teams where they just strike out so much that I might not always bet on the over for the pitcher against them, but I will never ever bet on the under. It's kind of the same concept here, where these offenses are too high efficiency. It's going to be too big of a game. This game, to me, if you're betting the total, you got to bet the over. And yeah, Prince Jazz, welcome, my guy. Yes, Sosa texted me his computer's tripping, so I'll just finish out here. Luke says I'm on the over in the Bryant game. Line going against me though. Yeah, Maine isn't the fastest paced team in the world. They're kind of more of a slow it down fundamental squad. They have the 259th slowest pace. Bryant does play fast. Bryant's top 10 in the country, and Bryant is also one of the top 10 teams in the country in getting out running fast break. When you have athletes like that, it's not that surprising. So really it depends on who dictates the tempo. So if Bryant's going to dictate the tempo, then you probably want to look at Bryant very early to cover that spread, because Maine can't play an up and down game, but that's what Bryant's used to. Bryant's used to playing fast. They're used to attacking the rim. They're used to getting out and running, and Maine is a much more half court fundamental squad. So for me, for like a team total like that, I might just look and just kind of I might watch for a bit and see who's dictating the pace, because if Maine's going to fall into Bryant's game of trying to run up and down, then it could be a very, very quick death, because they're not used to it and they don't do it very well. And Flow Creator, Michigan, Maryland. Yeah. First of all, welcome in, Flow Creator. We actually talked about that one earlier, so I'll recap all the plays for everybody before we go. So before we go, just to recap everybody's plays, we have Sosa has a Maryland and Houston money line parlay. We have I have over 144.5 for Wisconsin and Michigan State. Michigan, Maryland, Obviously, Sosa's on the money line, and I am on Maryland -3.5, -4.5, whatever you can get it at. I think there's a world where Maryland wins this game by double digits. Sosa is on Louisville at +5.5, and I am on Iona -3.5 to win the MAC championship. No. Oh, no. All good, Flow Creator. All good. I was going to review them anyway. And then last but not least, Nicole Gross, welcome in. Maryland, Michigan. See, I was saving this one for last because I really, really like this look. This is a really nice look, Nicole. Maryland, Michigan State +153 for the championship game tomorrow. Yep. I can't argue with that at all. I think that Sparty is built to beat a team like Wisconsin. You obviously know that I'm on Maryland. And at +153, there's a lot of value there. I actually really like that look. I actually might take that myself. So thank you, Nicole. Great look. All right. That is going to do it for today. I know we went on for much longer, but thank you to everybody. Please make sure to hit the like, follow me, follow Sosa, give us some love, repost it. We love doing this, and we will be with you tomorrow for Selection Sunday, and then we got a whole bunch of stuff for the NCAA tournament. So best of luck with everything everybody is tailing, and see you tomorrow.